I'm just going to show you that it was a very quiet, well, in terms of price movement for the big seven energy companies listed on our markets. Some folks have said we should increase this number to include a few others like Eternal Oil and maybe Capital Oil. We're going to think about that, to expand that, perhaps to include all the listed companies in the oil and gas on our markets. But a very small band there. So it was all unchanged in terms of the share prices. But in terms of transactions, a bit of some level of activities yesterday. Corn oil, Forte Oil, Total, Seplat, all of them sitting finished off the day without any change in market in listed prices. And you can see those numbers there for yourself. It was a lot of all gray shoots on Wednesday. That was the midweek transaction there for you to look at. But let's move on to the story around 7 Energy. 7 Energy is not listed on the market. It's as a limited liability company, not a PLC. But it's one big company whose name in the industry you must have heard do oil and gas business. More of it in gas. Runs a company subsidiary called Aku Gas with gas facilities in Calabar, a bit of there in Akwa Ibom and Nigeria's Niger Delta. So this company, 7 Energy, with headquarters in Victoria Island in Lagos, has been in some very trouble over the last several months, for about a year or more. Now it looks like it's now in hot water. And yesterday, the news was that 7 Energy is now in a capital restructuring plans and talks with creditors over the company's default on some of its debt servicing obligations. The debt talks by 7 Energy include some creditors like high-profile creditors like Savannah Petroleum PLC, in which there's a deal of $24.1 million term loan facility. That's number one. And those who are bondholders of 7 Energy's 10.5% senior secured notes and another 10.25% senior secured notes. Now, 7 Energy is now sitting down with its creditors in Nigeria, in the UK, and elsewhere in the world to restructure these debts. 7 Energy says that Savannah Petroleum PLC will acquire, quote, substantially all of the valuable assets of the 7 Energy group, including the share options. Now, that's very far-reaching in terms of consequences. Until all the restructuring is done, Savannah Petroleum will now take over, acquire all the valuable assets. And that, of course, will include those very critical gas infrastructure assets that 7 Energy has in Nigeria's Niger Delta location. Then, but of course, if you look at what some analyst community has been saying over the last few years regarding this 7 Energy company, in October last year, Exotic Capital out of London released an investors' note, what you call their restructuring thoughts on the problem that 7 Energy has. And they said that following the release of the restructuring terms, which was released last year by 7 Energy on the 11th of October, that was last year, Exotic Capital back then reiterated their buy recommendation of 7 Energy 10.25% year 2021 bond at a price of around 30 American cents. That was about a year ago. But then since I've gotten worse for this company, the report went on to say that the company, 7 Energy, expects to resume making cash coupon payments from April 2018, but will have to capitalize this payment if it manages to resume $50 million of additional equity before then. Those are part of the report from Exotic Capital, 12th of October last year. 7 Energy has a Eurobond due 2021. You can see that there. And this company has been failing to make coupon payments to investors. Plans to do that in April 2018. But circumstances beyond the company's control, as been said, has been responsible now for this company on its knees, now restructuring and handing over valuable assets to creditors. Let's talk about inflation yesterday in the consumer goods markets. And of course, it was all about how does all inflation really feed into the consumer goods prices. Let's get some sense of yesterday's inflation reading from Adim Okwesa, who is one of the research analysts at Financial Derivatives. Adim, good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Bosun.
And you managed to escape that vehicular traffic.
Yes, it was crazy.
Yeah, that's the right way to just put it. Thank you. It was crazy. There's no other way to put it. But of course, it was a very nasty accident. I'm sure you may have seen that in the news, that it was multiple accidents with some fatalities. We don't have the exact numbers yet. But of course, that is it. Now, this is a one major road, and with vehicles and trucks moving consumer goods, petrol products out of Lagos. So this is one problem that all comes back and bites all of us somewhere.
Yes, indeed. I think the cost of distribution and logistics is very expensive. And I think that's, if you look at the inflation numbers yesterday, inflation declined by a marginal 9 basis points. Food inflation declined by a marginal 1 basis point. But that doesn't tell the full story, unfortunately. I think if you look at domestic food prices actually declined significantly. The prices of most grains and beverages, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, declined markedly. However, that didn't reflect in the food basket because the imported food index increased significantly. But that is not a bad thing. Why imported food inflation increased was because of, as a result of improved consumer demand, improved business and consumer demand. And if you also look at the October's manufacturing purchasing managers index, you could also see that the number increased to the highest level in almost 3 years. So that contributed to so as a result of that, the food inflation basket did not decline as much as we hoped for. But in November and December, we should continue to see food prices go down, and that would, of course, be welcomed by consumers.
Yes, but food inflation remains still very